My name is Shane Newberger. I'm the Senior Executive Director, or fondly as I've been referring to myself, the new Amy, for those that know Amy. I want to thank you guys so much for coming, and I want to thank Fiona, where's Fiona Mackin-Jha, for hosting us in her beautiful home. Thank you so much, Fiona. Stacy, but thank you, Stacy, Racette, too, for all of your incredible hard work on this event. It's been fabulous, and we've had such great conversations, so thank you. We are so fortunate, as you know, in San Diego to have incredible researchers right in our own backyard, so we are very thankful for those that are here tonight to share a little bit about the work they're doing. ACS currently has 15 groundbreaking research grants in progress across 6 institutions in San Diego alone, with a whopping total investment of $7.5 million. But as you know, cancer does not stop, and so there's so much more to be done. So tonight we are thrilled to share with you the work that we are doing and where we still need to go in our path ahead. We want to thank you again for joining us, and Jesse's voice is going to sound a lot better than mine, so I'm going to hand this off to rest this puppy. But Jesse, thank you for hosting us tonight, and I'll kick things over to you. He is not only, as you can see, a research recipient of ours, but he is our esteemed board member as well, so thank you, Jesse.
How's everybody doing? Yeah, looked pretty shady this morning, but we got lucky, especially after the last 4 or 5 months, right? You didn't think we were, what's this, Wisconsin weather? Anyway, I have the honor and the privilege today to have a little small conversation with some of our Discovery folks here. And it truly is a pleasure to be here. I too would like to extend a very warm thank you to Fiona and Sanjay for their hospitality today. So we have 4 folks with us today. We have Brittany Alice Jewell, who is at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, a postdoc fellow. Stephanie Fraley, an associate professor in bioengineering at UC San Diego. Christy Wells, a professor of psychology at San Diego State University. And last but not least, Travis Young at the Scripps Research Institute. He is the vice president for biologics. So I'll start us off by asking a question for our 4 esteemed panelists. So you all are doing very impactful work, and I would love for each of you to share a sentence or two about the specific innovative research that you're working on. And we'll start with Brittany.
Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about research today. I am interested in colon cancer, and my studies focus on the master metabolic regulator AMPK. So we want to understand how our cells use energy, and I'm interested in the stem cell niche in the intestine and how these cells might maintain their ability to differentiate and to exist in the intestine, and how any malfunction in that ability might promote cancer or tumor genesis, the way tumors might start.
Everybody get that? She'll be here later. So, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, everyone. I'm a bioengineer, and I study cell migration, specifically breast cancer cell migration. So why do cells in our body stay where they're supposed to stay put? And why do some cells, like breast cancer cells, suddenly decide to move away and go to another part of the body? It's actually a complex thing. They have to have the energy to move. They have to have the ability to break down barriers to move. They have to be able to adhere to things and squeeze through things, and so it's actually a pretty complicated process. So I study how all of those different parts of the process integrate together, and then I find ways to strategically stop it. So most recently, we've discovered the role of iron in doing different things in terms of migration, controlling different modes of migration, and also we've been screening some small molecules to discover ways to turn that migration off.
Hi everyone. I'm also very honored to be here tonight, and thank you so much for your time. My research focuses in a couple of different areas. I develop, design, and evaluate interventions that help people access cancer care. You would think that we have all these wonderful innovations in taking care of people, but not everybody is able to access them, out there in the world. And so I try to work on interventions, especially patient navigation interventions, that make it easier for people to get care, to afford the care, and to be well cared for in their cancer journey, no matter where that might take them. The second type of work that I do is that I use things like sensors, so your smartwatch, some of you may be wearing one, other types of sensors to understand very tiny behaviors that we do every day. And the one that I focus on is medication adherence. So as you know, in cancer, many of the ways that we treat cancer now are through having folks take pills every day, right? We take medicines to treat cancer, we take medicines after the cancer treatment experience, but not everybody takes those medicines. And it's not because they don't want to, but there's a whole lot of reasons. And so I study and try to intervene at that very micro level by learning about people's patterns of behavior and the patterns of symptoms in life throughout the day. So that's what I do.
Hi everyone, Travis Young at Scripps, and my group focuses broadly on the translation of novel ideas that we discover at the bench into early stage clinical trials in a wide range of different indications. One of those ideas was funded by the American Cancer Center. It was actually the first grant that I got when I was an independent, running my independent lab. And it was an idea to take a gene or cell therapy that was just newly identified and translate it into a platform that could impact multiple areas of cancer. And so you may be familiar with CAR T cell therapy. It's been transformative for patients with lymphoma. Patients have been refractory to multiple prior indications, have had complete responses to CAR T cell therapy and have been very durable, out to 10 years or more. But it hasn't worked in solid tumors. And so our idea that we had at the bench almost a decade ago was to take this therapy, create something new out of it, and make it work in solid tumors. And so we've so far demonstrated that it works in blood cancers as some of the other therapies do, and our next step will be to translate that into solid tumors next year. Very appreciative of the support from the American Cancer Center. It's making a really big impact.
And I, like you, also received my very first grant from the American Cancer Study. So thank you, American Cancer Study. So, Brittany, can you tell us how, back to what Travis was saying, how ACS funding, the funding that you received, affected your research career? How do you think your career would be different if you hadn't received those funds?
Sure. Not unlike the others. I think I'm the youngest career-wise on the panel up here. I'm a postdoctoral fellow, which means that I'm still in my training. So after, you all probably know, after our PhD studies, many of us still continue on doing training, and I'm doing my training in the lab of Ruben Shaw. And the American Cancer Society has funded my fellowship, and also that of Chris Murray and several in the past. And what this does, for me personally, it's allowed me the freedom to where I can focus on my bench research and not be looking for other sources of funding. It also allows, maybe we can speak better to this, but it allows us to focus more of our funds on the actual experiments. And some of my experiments, which tend to be envelope pushing, like growing mini organs in a dish, are a little bit expensive because they're so new. And so funding my salary through this postdoctoral fellowship allows me to do more groundbreaking research. So I'm really appreciative to the ACS for that. And I think that the ACS has been particularly conscientious of the need for postdoctoral funding for women, and so I'm especially appreciative of that too.
Just from this brief introduction, you can see the incredible work that our investigators are doing. So I see a lot of confusion around the process of moving an idea into action. Whether that be why it takes so long to get new drugs to market, new medical devices approved, or clinical trials available. So Stephanie, Could you talk a little bit about your experience with a timeline and why there is sometimes a long runway from an idea to market?
Yes. It boils down to funding. The models of funding that we have most ready access to as scientists are federal funding grants, and those require you to have almost done everything before you can get the money, because it has to be very low risk, right? So how do you fund things to then get the funding for the things? It's a chicken and egg story. So that just highlights the huge importance that ACS can play in helping to support these groundbreaking, cutting edge, slightly more risky but big reward types of projects that we can do. The timeline can be shorter. It's really just we have to stop writing grants, get back in the lab, and focus our energies on the science.
Thank you. So, Christy, there's been a lot of discussion around the importance of diversity in research, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. Why do you think diversity matters within research?
I think that there are a number of reasons that diversity matters in research. And so let me talk about one first. When we don't have folks from different backgrounds with different conditions, different experiences, a lot of those folks participating in research, helping develop innovations, sometimes innovations don't get developed that meet their needs. So an example of this could be cars. So women are more likely to sustain injuries, more serious injuries than men in cars. And that still is today. They're working to change that, but that's an example of where in the design of a car, the needs of maybe smaller people at the time, women and children, may not have been considered. Another one that's come up pretty recently with COVID is sensors which measure the oxygen in your blood. Those don't do well with darker skin. And they're off, and they overestimate the oxygen that's in people's blood, making it difficult to treat people who are having conditions in, for example, the emergency room. So when people aren't present in research and innovation, aren't included, the innovations don't meet their needs. And so it's critically important for the things that we create to be able to meet the needs of everyone in our society, everyone in our world, and to include them in participating in that way. So that would be one reason. I could go on, but I won't.
Travis, immunotherapy is something constantly in the news, particularly right now. Do you think immunotherapy will be a turning point in the fight against cancer?
Yeah, we're definitely at an inflection point in treating cancer with immunotherapies. I use the example of lymphoma, where CAR T cell therapies, which is a gene cell therapy, has been transformative for a lot of patients and created really durable responses. We've looked at cancer treatment and cancer therapy for years as the percentage of patients that respond. And that was a success. If we had 30, 40% of patients respond to a drug, that was a success. But we weren't focused enough on the durability of the response. And now with immunotherapies, we're getting a lot better durability, not just in better response, but patients are going more and more years before relapse. And in some cases, they don't relapse at all. They live until they pass of something else. I've heard someone say they pass of something they shouldn't. I think folks know cancer is said to overtake cardiovascular disease as the #1 killer of Americans. And the only way we can change that is by creating more durable therapies, not just therapies that work, but a patient will relapse in a couple of years, but therapies that work and the patient doesn't have to worry about relapse. And so that's what's becoming transformative for immunotherapies, because it's creating that curative response.
Thank you. So one last question, one sentence. So I know everyone is intrigued and would love to hear a lot more, but as we wrap up, leave us with one thought as to when you think about where we are today in research, and what the future holds, what is the one word that comes to mind as investigators? And we'll start with you.
Wow, no pressure. So,
Remember,
one word. I think for me, the word is innovation. We've got so much opportunity for talent and for new ideas to be brought to the forefront. And with the support of everyone here and the general scientific community, the general public, everyone knows someone who's been affected by cancer. And we've all got the opportunity to push forward.
innovation.
One word, unblinded. I feel like the blinders are coming off in so many different ways, not only from the technologies where we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the details, but also the ways that we can integrate all of the information that we have to actually figure out holistically from a systems level what's going on. I feel like we're just seeing things differently now.
So unblinded, awesome. Chrissy.
I would say things are exciting right now in the world of research. Our world is changing. We're learning more about how our bodies function, how things function in the world, how technology can help us. And and my hope is that everyone can benefit from these innovations. But I think it's exciting to see how they're coming along. And so I would say excitement.
Excitement.
Cures. I think, as a researcher, we are sometimes a little hesitant to use that word because we're so analytical that we're thinking, is it really a cure? Is there residual disease in the bone marrow? Well, have we looked at it molecularly, right? But a cure really means someone doesn't have to worry about relapse.
Thank you. Thank you all. Stacy?
I hope everybody's inspired by the passion and the opportunities you had to speak to one another tonight. It's so great. Thank you to all the researchers, especially the panel, Jesse for facilitating the panel, and Sanjay and Fiona for... Yeah, it's already hard to rove around with drinks and food and conversation. And so in your cars, there'll be a booklet of information, a little bit about the researchers for you to be able to access. And we'll provide electronically too, but we'll do that for you through the valet. So that'll be out there already. Something that I want people to be clear about, those of you that have heard from me before, heard me talk about the peer review process. And a few researchers, that's what they brought up today, is to know that their research, they were awarded their research that went through peer review process. So I had the opportunity to sit in twice a year. American Cancer Society takes in a number of grants, and they're all evaluated by a peer review process. So I had an opportunity to sit in on those meetings in Atlanta, and there's 14 separate committees that evaluate each of the grants from other peers, many ACS-funded researchers, but every committee also has a layperson or two on their committee to help look at the research from those guys too. And it blew me away to be, already had been working on research grant funding, some of you have helped, but it's just magnificent to realize what it takes. And even those grants that don't actually make it, and you all seem quite brilliant, I'm sure you made it so fast, that was amazing. But many times they don't make it through the first time, but the ACS gives feedback. They don't just let that go like, oh yeah, okay, out. They actually give them feedback. So I don't know if some of you could be able to speak to that point if that happens, but it really is amazing. So that's important to understand. And I feel like I've been so privileged to have that opportunity. And those of you that know me, get it, I'm pretty passionate about this, right, already. So the fact that you all can't have been in those meetings, but I'm here to deliver that information back, right? Not everybody has the opportunity to go. So you can feel confident that the American Cancer Society has worked very hard to vet out the top-notch researchers. And sometimes we aren't able to, well, that's what we talked about. I forget if I spoke to you some specifically. I remember one gentleman that said the first year he didn't get his grant, but he reapplied, and then he was able to get it the second year, right? And so, that's amazing. There's no shame in that, but that's what happens. And Jesse, tell them a little more about that next level.
Yeah, I mean, research is not an easy thing. You really have to be committed to what you're doing. But, without organizations like the American Cancer Society to support the National Institutes of Health, there would be much broader gaps in the types of research that gets done. I mean, you heard from scientists that are working in pretty diverse areas, but at the end of the day, that focuses on the same thing, which is to try to keep people from getting cancer in the first place, to surviving longer if you do happen to get it. And we've made a lot of strides, and because of all of you, quite frankly, and because of all of you. So, there's a lot to do. Specifically on grants, right now the extramural program, which these are grants going outside of the ACS, the team that reviews these grants receives about 1,000 grants a year, and about half of those that are deemed worthy of funding do not get funded, and they get shelved. And so really funds from individuals such as yourself, many donors, allow those additional grants to get funded sooner rather than later. And that's very important. So we want to ensure that every drug, every clinical trial, every population study, every experimental treatment is available when it's needed the most, which is sooner rather than later. And that's what this funding really produces. And the only way that that we can really ensure that our families receive life-saving intervention, life-saving cures is through research funding. And that's what we're here to kind of honor and acknowledge today. So thank you all so much for that.
And so many of you know that we can lessen the deficit that's happening. In 2017 and 2019, a number of you joined me to help fund research grants that weren't already funded. And those of you that are doing fundraising, that's what you're doing. Your dollars come in to help fund those grants. In 2020, a group of us, so thank you those that are present. Also, I led a donor research collaborative as the largest single investor and convener that led to fully funding the institutional research grant, or IRG, at UCSD, led by Michael Bouvet, who's here. Yay! Thank you so much. And Amy Myers, who was staff at the time, gone volunteer. I can't see her right now. She's like still hiding in the crowd. But part of that was also understanding that that grant was so close to not being funded. And it was going to be at the end of its expiration. And those of you that have spoken to Michael that understand that grant's quite different to that he's helping manage awarding $1 amount in small increments to a number of academic folks to get them going. And otherwise we might lose some of that opportunity, but that helps inspire them. So hopefully if you haven't already spoken to him, you take the opportunity when we mingle again to do that and understand, there's just such a broad array of research that range from the $30,000 level, which is I think the low end of those type of grants that are given to a number of people, all the way up to $800,000 and sometimes multiple grants. As you heard Jesse, those of you that were here 4 years ago got to speak. You had 2 going right at that time. So thank you very much for that also. So hopefully after seeing and hearing the caliber of people tonight, other of you that are here might want to join us in our efforts that we're going to use this event to springboard to. So we take very seriously my opportunity to attend events like this in New England, and us to have held another one here 4 years ago, is that this is educational. We don't fundraise at this event because the hope is that you just understand and you walk away thinking about the impact that it has for you to fundraise and to donate. But myself and the ACS staff will reach out to you and hopefully see what your interests might be and what our 2023 collaborative will be as we go forward that we might be able to do together. So we look forward to that opportunity. And to kick that off, I've pledged an initial major gift, and also 2 donors that couldn't be here today are also pledging that said, oh, I can't come to the event, but here's my check, basically. And I'm like, I like that. That was awesome. here 4 years ago, and what stood out to me, and Eric, you know, because you read the message, is he said, I'm sending you the check, I understand the process, I don't even need to be part of this year's process, because I know what the Cancer Society does for the grants to get on the list, and I understand what you and your group of friends and folks that want to take a look at the list and make those decisions do. He's like, I'm good, I'm sending you the check, but I'm in. So in our collaboratives, we have some people that want to do that, and we have other people that have sat in on the meetings. I see some friends that we enjoy doing that process where we take a look at the grants and make those decisions. So thank you to everybody for all your support. And one thing to say, like, please look around. Nobody's here by accident. Everybody, like, look around you. This is your chance. Right? You're all here intentionally. So whether you're a researcher, a donor, a fundraiser, all three, like it's all important. And together we can make a bigger impact. And that's one of the greatest excitements for me. I hope you guys give feedback, researchers, donors, fundraisers, everybody, about tonight, right? Because 4 years ago, I got only a little bit of feedback and it was all really good. And I got some great input from some of the researchers that I attended to. But please let us know, like, what helps you determine if you want to keep fundraising, if you want to keep giving? Because I'm going to tell you, we have the information. I might not know you want it yet, but we have it. And please help us help you to want to keep giving and keep fundraising. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. Based on feedback from 4 years ago, people said, after we hear from some researchers, we'd love to mingle again. So we've left the time for you to be able to do that.
I have a question.
Question,
How much time do you typically spend on average writing grants? I mean, that's what really bothers me as a donor, because I feel bad that you spend too much time begging for money, and I know that's a terrible thing to say. Just curious, how much of your time do you do that?
Percent effort or?
Yeah.
90%. Effort.
25, 30%, depending on the year.
Wow.
That's great.
And that, yeah, we're teaching, some of us teach and do lots of experiments and such like that. Some years it's even more, yeah.
It's important for our career advancement too. If you have funding as a PhD student, that's important. If you have funding as a postdoctoral fellow, that's important. And as an early faculty, it's important so that you get considered for promotion and tenure. So it's
So it's a constant battle.
super important.
It's routines us in the field.
And it varies, right? At certain points in your career, certain weeks, certain months.
Year.
That's all you'll be doing.
That's all you bring.
To get my first R1 grant,
Right.
I took 3 months, and I would say 85% of that time, that's all I did was write that grant. Yeah.
I just spent a year writing credit. Yeah, an entire year writing a grant.
Better at it, so you get more efficient.
You
Yeah.
get more efficient.
But in the beginning, you just, the whole time, you just.
I gotta say about the American Cancer Society grant process, you said they get feedback. I got my butt kicked on the first time. And I would not have gotten my NIH funding had I not gotten the feedback on those first 2 grants. And the feedback was not.
So my other question is, have any of you ever gotten anything in any kind of school less than an A?
Yes.
Yes. And everything else except for science.
The one young guy, he folded like this. He looked down at me. He said, you got a B in chemistry. And I said, I didn't get a B in chemistry. I didn't tell him I got a D, but that.
I had to retake partial differential equations and now I teach. So twice was the magic number.
So I don't know, I feel like sort of like a wedding line, mingle! Like people should dance something and push it out, dance something.